Hey guys, Brox here doing a quick video on Diablo 4. Just wanted to show my character that I've been working on, this new expansion. It's nowhere near done, but it's at its final form, I think, from a playability standpoint. Now it's just gearing and leveling Paragon to gain more power, so I figured I'd do a quick review of the build, what I've been playing. A lot of people have been playing Paladin and Warlock. I played Paladin a little bit in the Sanctification season, I think it was, and I don't see any reason to rehash that here. It was okay. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for from a Paladin class. It just felt like a rehash of the D3 Templar, but in uh, the new version, I was debating playing a Warlock, but then I had asked around and people had said it's very spammy of just casting spells, and it wasn't really what I was looking for. So I went back to the tried and true, the Barbarian, and I was looking to play HOTA, but a lot of things have changed since the last time I played HOTA, so a lot of the aspects are gone for HOTA. One of the core items is a unique that combos with Earthquake, but I'm not actually using Earthquake because Earthquake didn't seem to have a lot of great combos with the new set system. So I was looking at the set system because, like D3, sets are defining this game now. So the sets give massive multiplicative multipliers, some 600%, some 200%, and they're so impactful that you kind of have to build around them just like you did in Diablo 3. I don't particularly love that because it takes a lot of the build diversity and uniqueness that you can get from the game, and it restricts it down to whatever Blizzard says is the best set in the game. I don't think the set I'm using is the best set in the game, but I do think it's very powerful. And that set is going to be Bull Kathos Pride set, and that gives our ancient skills a lot of benefits. The big one is the cost reduction on Fury. So 50% reduced Fury cost, 50% increased cooldown reduction. That doesn't really matter. 50% increased damage, that does matter. Summoning an ancient grants damage reduction, that does matter. And then summoning an ancient, you summon one additional ancient. I think I'm summoning about 6 ancients at a time, and it's consistently. So the screen gets kind of cluttered with ancients popping up. And then those ancient skills, the skill itself gets 200% increased damage, which applies to HOTA directly, not the ancient directly, the summon, I don't think, but to the actual skill gets 200% multiplicative damage, which you'll see when we actually start playing. The other thing I will notate is my gear is awful, like terrible. I have like literally one ancestral piece. It's fairly good. It's G8 for resource cost reduction, which is huge, and strength, which is okay. And then it has vuln damage, multiplier, shadow resistance, and critical strike damage. We'll go over all that in a minute. And then everything else is literally, well, in this ring is ancestral, but everything else is non-ancestral except for these weapons. It's nowhere near anywhere finished. We don't even have sockets on some of this stuff because I'm so broke on materials. And we're really just compensating for areas that we need toughness so that we can survive in the higher torments. Now I'm in Torment 6 right now just because it's easier to kind of breeze through some of the war plans looking for upgrades to my gear. But I have opened Torment 7 and I can do Torment 7. It's just slower. It doesn't feel as fast as I need it to be to grind out materials and gear so that I can upgrade my sets and find new ancestral pieces to then obviously slot in. And then when you get those ancestral pieces, you need masterworking materials and stuff like that. So I needed something a little bit faster. So I'm in Torment 6, even though I can do Torment 7 just fine, just to grind out material and gear at the moment. And I don't, like, the power level of this is nowhere near its peak. I don't have any mythics. I don't have any sanctification rolls on these yet, or the transmogrify yet. All that is going to add tons of power. I don't have all my Paragon yet. So, like, when you look at my boards, I've only got, I think, 4. Yeah, I have 4 of the glyphs in. I don't even have my 5th board yet, but we're working towards it. It'll be soon. And then down here, my challenger glyph isn't even online yet. So this will be the next thing that comes online. It'll give me an extra 10x against elites, which is just a ton more little damage amplification from this, and that will be very soon. This is kind of what I'm working on right now. And then we'll go to our 5th board. When we go to our 5th board, we're going to pick up Blood Rage. Not so much for the damage over time effects, because that doesn't matter to us, but it's the your damage is increased by 60%. While berserking, we berserk quite often. So this is just another 60% multiplicative that we get to add from this last board that we'll get. So again, there's a lot of damage overhead that is still coming. A quick look at the board. I don't take any basic skills. We don't need basic skills. We've solved Fury generation at this point, so we don't need those anymore. HOTA, we're going to take the node for 25% increased size and 20% increased damage. We're going to take the Hammer of the Ancients Ancestral because that is going to activate our set. Our set is then going to turn this into an Ancient skill, which gives us the 200% multiplier. And then here, we're also going to take 3% increased Fury generation for 5 seconds each time each enemy damaged by your Hammer of Ancients up to 30%. This just helps our Fury generation to keep it topped off. You'll see that when we're playing. And then we're going to take Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry, we're going to take the Fortifies You so that we can activate our Paragon tree that gives us multiplicative damage from Fortify. We're also going to turn this into an Ancient skill so that it reduces the Fury cost. You'll notice on both Rallying Cry, my Fury cost is 6, and on HOTA, my Fury cost is 8. We're actually going to try to reduce these all the way down to 1. The goal is to get them to 1. If we can get them both to 1, then we're sitting pretty because we'll never have Fury issues. You can't get them to 0 to my knowledge because resource cost reduction is multiplicative. But if we can get them to 1, then we should be fine. I mean, we're fine right now, but we should be like super fine if we can get them both to 1. Which is, I think, possible because, again, I haven't masterworked all my gear and I don't have ancestral pieces for all of my gear yet. So I think it's doable. Rallying Cry's effectiveness is also increased by 20%. That's just for the move speed. You'll see that this comes in really important moving around maps because we can be really quick. We're also going to take Iron Skin. Iron Skin is going to allow us to move faster. And then it's also going to make us unstoppable while we have Iron Skin up. That allows us just to run through, again, maps and pits faster. So we'll grab the 15% life. It's just survivability. So just while it's up, you'll get an extra 15% life just for a single point. And a little bit extra toughness. You'll see that my toughness total is like 2.5 million when we're out in the world. You'll see that when we get there. We go back to our skills, then we're going to take Challenging Shout. We're going to max this out for the 28% damage reduction. Then we're going to make that weaken enemy, so that's another 20% reduction on their damage. Then we're going to get another 20% reduction that decays over the course of the Challenging Shout. And then we're going to generate 3 Fury every time we take damage while Challenging Shout is active. So if we're taking damage, we're also getting Fury generation. Then we're going to come over here. We're going to get the War Cry. War Cry is going to give us stacks of Ferocity. It's then going to give us Berserking. This is going to trigger the Berserking 60% multiplicative that we just looked at on the Paragon board. And then it's also going to make enemies vulnerable, but we also have Exploit to make enemies vulnerable. So this is just a way to keep vulnerable up as much, the uptime on vulnerable as high as possible. Then something that I don't think anybody's going to be running, but I am running, is Mighty Throw. I'm actually not taking an ultimate skill, and I am not using Call of the Ancients because Highlander, this node is bugged. It does not work. It is supposed to give you a permanent ancient, and it does not. Nor do I think it's going to be good enough, to be honest, for Torment 12 or higher, because scaling the Ancient or the Summon themselves seems to be a lot more difficult than just scaling damage itself on your primary core skill. So I rather scale HOTA with the 200% multiplier than try to scale the Summon that gets created by Highlander. So I just don't see this as like super optimal. So instead what we're going to do is we're actually going to take Mighty Throw, and we're taking Mighty Throw for a huge reason, 2 huge reasons actually. The first one is we're going to generate a barrier with Mighty Throw. The barrier is going to last for 6 seconds, which is really perfect because we're also going to turn Mighty Throw into an ultimate skill that does a lot of damage, but its cooldown is exactly 6 seconds, which means that every 6 seconds we can generate a new barrier on its cooldown. So we throw it, we get a barrier for 6 seconds, and then we, when the barrier falls off, hopefully if it lasts the full time, then we can throw it again and we get another barrier right on cooldown. So these two are perfectly aligned to just keep generating barrier. And that's really important when I get to my gear, and you'll see why in a second, that we want to keep continuously having barrier up. Grants 3 stacks of ferocity. Again, this is going to stack with our war cry to give us even more ferocity, which gives us attack speed. That will obviously matter as well. So when we go back and we look at the gear, you're going to see that we're taking a couple things. For defensive, this is a hugely overpowered defensive, which is you just gain 4% increased armor per 1% of your life missing. So as you lose more life, you get more toughness, which is just insanity. I think this has to be one of the best defensive aspects that you can get, or at least it seems like it would be one of the best defensive aspects you can get, because at 100%, I mean, it would be 400% increase to your armor, which is just insane. We're going to get into the defensives and the multipliers. So while wielding a two-handed weapon, we're going to gain 34% damage reduction. That could go up to 40%. We are only using HOTA, which means we are only using our mace, so we get this 100% of the time. We're then going to increase our bludgeoning skill damage by 50x, can go up to 60x when we're hitting an incapacitated or vulnerable enemy. With exploit, that's every enemy. So we are just going to constantly be doing 50% extra multiplicative damage up to 60. And then while we have a barrier, we're going to get an additional up to 30% damage reduction if this was maxed out. That's where having the barrier up is also going to give us survivability. And then this is really important. So we are also getting, the combo that we're using, I tried using concealment, but concealment breaks almost immediately with this build. So instead of using concealment, what I've opted to do is when I cast an ultimate skill, every third ultimate skill will cast Frost Nova, freezing enemies around me. This is amazing in the pit. This is amazing for running pretty much anything, because we've turned Mighty Throw into an ultimate skill. So instead of our ultimate skill having a 60-second cooldown, our ultimate skill actually has a 6-second cooldown. So every third throw of Mighty Throw will cast Frost Nova. You'll see how that kind of works in the gameplay when I do a quick run. But it is super impactful, it is super prevalent, and it happens every 18 seconds. So every 18 seconds, we basically get a free Frost Nova that freezes enemies around us. Then we're going to take critical strikes, give us movement speed up to, for 1 second up to 6 seconds, and that's going to be additional movement speed when we crit. Then we're going to take, while we are fortified, you deal increased damage. This goes up to 130% if it was maxed out. We are always fortified thanks to our war cry. So this is just a flat 130% multiplier. Then we're going to take another one where we deal additional damage when we have barrier active. Again, we're going back to why do we have so much barriers? We have barrier on Iron Skin and we have barrier on our Mighty Throw, and that is because it is also giving us multiplicative damage. Then when we cast an ultimate skill, all of our damage is increased by up to 55% for 8 seconds, gain 2 additional ultimate skill ranks. This does affect Mighty Throw when it's converted to an ultimate skill. Every time we cast Mighty Throw, we basically get this 100% of the time because Mighty Throw is a 6-second cooldown. This is on an 8-second threshold, so if you're throwing Mighty Throw on cooldown, you will always have the multiplier up. Then you deal 138% up to 180% additional damage to incapacitated enemies. This is when the blue bar pops up on bosses, you do mega damage. This will actually change. I think I'm going to move one of these other ones that does damage down here and move this up to the necklace or to the gloves. It just has to be properly aligned. But all of these are important damage multipliers. Another damage multiplier here. Your skills that summon Ancients, which will be our Hammer of the Ancients primary skill, also deals just flat increased damage, up to 90% increased damage. This is up all the time because now that HOTA is a ancient skill, it will always deal this extra damage. This one is the one I think I'm going to move down here because it would be 180% all the time, where this is just during the incapacitated. So these two just have to switch when I get optimal gear. Your shout skills generate 11.5 primary resource regeneration while active. This is what is keeping us topped off. If we get our skills down to 1 point of fury cost, this will keep us at permanent 100% the entire time. It is incredibly powerful because we are basically constantly spamming rallying cry, because it's a fury cost that can be replaced by the cost of the actual resource regeneration. I will show you that in real time of what I'm talking about. And then your skills deal up to 55% increased damage based on your primary resource when cast, receiving the maximum benefit when you're at full primary resource. This is another multiplier since if we can get everything down to 1, we will always be at 100%, so we will always get this multiplier. We could also change this out, and I will probably change this out, take a damage loss hit to get our shout cooldown reduced by 10 seconds, which is one of the aspects that I do not have, just to move these two down into the 10-second range. That way, well, I will always have challenging shout and war cry for the berserking damage multiplier up more often, and sacrifice this 55% to have 2 of those benefits instead of just the 1 benefit. So that will change, I think, when I get the shout affix. I do not currently have it. I will show you what I am talking about. So if we go here and we go to resource, and then we type shout, you should see it here. This one, your shout skills grant. Oh, nope, not that one. This one, your shout skill cooldowns are reduced by up to 10 seconds. So if we get this, then we can reduce our shout cooldowns down to 10 seconds instead of 20 seconds. And then we will obviously have them up more often. All right, so that is the primary setup for the build currently. Oh, and just to quickly run through the paragons. So the first board I went with Might. Might gives us a extra 8% damage multiplier while wielding two-handed weapons. Then I went to the Decimator board, which gives us a multiplicative damage when we damage vulnerable enemies. We're not using overpower, so that doesn't really matter. But you just deal extra damage to vulnerable enemies. And then we took Challenger. Challenger is the one where we are working towards to give us 10x more increased damage to elites. Then we came over to the Carnage board. Berserking now additionally grants 15% attack speed, and you deal additional fire and physical damage. HOTA is converted to a fire skill when it is converted to ancient, so it does fire damage now instead of physical damage. It may do both, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure, but it says it's converted to fire damage. So see there under modifiers, it says Hammer of the Ancients now deals fire damage. So this is a 45% multiplier either way. To be in truth, it's either the fire or physical. It gets the multiplier either or. And then we added Territorial, which is we gain even more damage reduction from close enemies. Then we go up to the Warbringer board, and this is the one where when we have Fortify, we get 45% increased damage. And then for every 300 Fury we spend, we gain 2% of that as maximum life. That doesn't really come into much play now that we've reduced our Fury cost, because if we get it down to 1, that will basically never proc. And then we went over here and we got the Exploit Glyph, of course, so that we can, every time we hit enemies, they get vulnerability for 3 seconds. It can only happen every once 5 seconds, so there's a 2-second downtime within that window where they may not be vulnerable, but hopefully by that point they're dead. And then, like I said before, we're going to pick up the Blood Rage board for the extra 60% multiplier while we are berserking. And then we're going to start getting all the little side nodes for anything that gives us percent multiplier to our defenses. So something like 4% life, we're going to try to pick that up. We're probably going to avoid anything that's just flat damage, like plus additive damage, but something with critical strike we definitely would pick up. Crit damage, probably not. Right here, this one, we're definitely going to go get this node because this is 3% to our all res and 2% to our total armor, so we'll work our way to grab this one. There's just different ones that we're going to walk around and make sure that we get any of the percent increases to our resistances and to our armor and to our life. Just everything on the board after the primary points of the multiplicative damage, I'm going to go back to just use for toughness increase so that we can push higher torments without worrying about dying. But like I said, we are pretty tough. So I'm going to do just a simple pit. Let's do like a 45 just to show this off. That way I can talk to you while doing it. I can't really die in here, so it's perfectly fine. So let me show you kind of where we sit. So when we start, we're at about 437 toughness, but you'll notice we have no fury generation and we can't spam rallying cry yet. But the way you want to start anything that you're doing off is just cast any one of your shouts and it's going to top off your, it'll top off your fury. And then once we are topped off, we never have to worry about fury generation again because we're just going to spam rallying cry, which is just going to keep us topped off. And then everything else is just going to be spam on cooldown as we run through. and then HOTA as we go. HOTA, you'll see, is going to generate a bunch of ancients that are going to get summoned, and the ancients are going to do tons of damage. I think my highest hit so far is about 420 million, again with really bad gear, really bad gear. We're hitting for about 420 million, and then we have about 2.5 million toughness. So let me show you kind of what that looks like in real time. So like 2 million, and I'm not being hit, so like this isn't proccing, but yeah, it'll go up to about 2.5 million toughness. And then as we run through, so now you'll see we have the Fury, and we will never now have issues with Fury going forward. And then you can just run through really fast if you want to, find the elites, and then, you know, you just hammer away. And then you just keep spamming for your movement speed. Rallying Cry keeps you at 200%. The extra here will push you over. So let me see if when my iron comes back up, I'll see if I can show you like a full defensive proc on my defenses, because we won't take damage. I mean, we just won't take damage. So like if we're here, when we pop everything, yeah, we're at like 2.2, 2.5 million toughness. So nothing in here can really hurt me. I mean, there's never going to be a circumstance where I can be hurt in here. And then we just kind of run through. We're looking for elites. Oh, I didn't throw my my mighty throw in there. I'll throw my mighty throw in there as well. So like when we get here, so we'll go over here, right? And then we'll throw mighty throw, everything procced. Yeah, like 2.5 million. Because our mighty throw will give us extra barrier. All right, here's a couple rares. There was a couple rares. There's the freeze. So that was the every third mighty throw, you're gonna get that freeze. Again, if you're just throwing it on cooldown, you can throw it behind you. It cleans up enemies. Right, so there's the freeze again. See how often it procs? Because it's a 6-second cooldown, it's on every third throw. So as long as you're throwing it on cooldown, you'll pretty much have it up when you need it. See, right there, throws the elites. And then when they're incapacitated, don't forget, when they're incapacitated, they get that 190% extra multiplier, which just deletes pretty much everything. That's why the freeze is really helpful, because on like rares and bigger enemies, when they get frozen, you just instantly delete them, because you get that extra 190% multiplier. That's where the big numbers come from too, by the way. So it's like 200 million right there. That's when you'll see the big ones, is when they're frozen. Your standard hits are about 20 million, but you're also hitting with multiple ancients for that 20 million. So it's a little deceptive. You can kind of see, like, we can gather all this up, freeze. Not a care in the world, really. It's also really cozy. Like, it's not a lot of buttons. I mean, most of my buttons are just defenses, and like in here, even at my base defense, like 580, just running around, like not even using my other shouts, I can't die, really. So really in T6, there you go, like, they just deleted. In T6, I'm pretty much unkillable. T7 slows down a little bit, not so much because of defenses, but because of damage. Because I don't have all my multipliers yet, and I don't have like all my multipliers in the right place yet. To make that kind of like super breezy. But it's a work in progress. All right, here's a rare. That was a rare. Here's a boss. We just procced all our stuff, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, he's just gonna die. There you go. If I hadn't just procced everything on the rare, that would have instantly deleted the boss. It's really kind of unfortunate. I wanted to show you guys how fast you can delete a boss. because it's really fast. All right, so I think we just keep giving. I think we were trying to get this to 50. So we'll just do that. Okay. Yeah. So that's the build where it's at right now. Again, we're using the Bull Kathos Pride Ancient set, and then we're just spamming HOTA, and you'll see we really can just spam it endlessly. We don't need a basic skill to do generation because we're just going to keep casting shouts, and shouts refills our fury bar. And then the more we can resource cost reduce our shout and our HOTA down to 1, then we basically have infinite fury, and we don't need, again, to ever use a basic skill. And then we can just use our 2 movements to run around the maps. And yeah. And then Mighty Throw, again, is just a quick ultimate skill on a 6-second cooldown so that we can proc the Sorcerer's Freeze. So you see that was 1. We don't have it just yet. Should be, I think, the next one. See, boom, freeze. And then the cool part is the hammer hits after the freeze, so it will actually get the benefit of the freeze incapacitation damage, which is just insane. So see, there it goes again on the throw. I actually think it's every 2 it procs the freeze, which is just insane. That may actually be a bug. So we won't talk about it. But yeah, 2.5 million toughness. Really good damage, really cozy, easy to play build to get you to Torment 6, Torment 7 easily, and then right around the Torment 7 portion, you're going to start hitting a wall where you actually do need ancestral gear, and you need to start actually like doing some stuff with your gear. I'm again prioritizing resource cost reduction to get it down to 1. And then obviously masterworking everything. So a lot of this stuff isn't even masterworked or touched. It's not ancestral. Like none of this stuff is increased. So overhead wise, I'm nowhere near where this build can be. I think it can easily do Torment 10 with the right gear, with the right mythics and sanctifications. It probably can do Torment 12 with ease. I don't see any reason why. I mean, I'm already hitting for 420 million. A couple more multipliers in the right places should put it over 1 billion. And I imagine if you're hitting for 1 billion damage, you're probably Torment 10 plus. So yeah, really having fun. I like this. I said this in my PoE video. I'm going to say it here. I think this is a better game currently than PoE 2, largely because PoE 2 forgets the most important thing about video games, which is they should be fun. This feels fun. It feels fun to just kind of run around, hammer, grind towards a goal, grind towards some gear, grind towards your, unlocking all of your things. Also, if you wanted to see this, I've unlocked all the way up to number 6. Number 7 says you have to defeat Echo Lilith on Torment 8. We're not at Torment 8 yet, so we can't do this yet. This one I also haven't done, but I probably could do, which is just defeat a Greater Lair boss on Torment 6. Since we can do Torment 6, this shouldn't be a problem. So I probably could actually just knock this out. I just have to figure out how to unlock a Greater Lair boss. If it's easy, then obviously I'll just go knock it out and do this. But this one's going to be a little bit more difficult. This one is going to be the new endgame boss, and then this is the end. So even for unlocking your seasonal stuff, the build is super cozy. You can probably get up to number 7 fairly easily. Once you're in Torment 10, you could probably breeze this. As far as this goes, you're probably going to need some gear, I would imagine. Super easy, super cozy. Hope this helps. For all you guys who don't want to just see only Warlock content from every content creator, this is a barbarian, super cozy barbarian, super easy to play, kind of just enjoyable to run around with. And it's HOTA. You slam ground, you do big damn. All right, guys, have a good one. Hey guys, Brox here, doing a quick update video from my video on my build yesterday, as some changes have been made to the build that I think are pretty significant. First thing I'll say is I'm not doing this off a build guide. I didn't do any prep before the season. I didn't data mine anything. I'm not looking at build guides online. So as I get new items, there are things that kind of come out of the blue where I'm just like, oh, that actually optimizes the build and improves it. I'm not looking at anything beforehand knowing like, oh, I have to go get this off of a build planner. So with that said, some of the things from yesterday have changed because I got some new items that have changed how the build operates. First thing I will say that we adjusted was we did end up moving around those skills that I had talked about, that I was going to take the time to move around. So we moved your skills that summon ancients to the two-handed weapon so it gets more value. Now it does 102%. We actually removed the incapacitated affix completely, and we did that for two reasons. Number one, because I moved Heavenly Strength to my necklace to give us a massive increase in toughness, because it is a flat damage reduction, it's not a multiplicative damage reduction. So if we can get this to 60%, essentially this reduces all damage incoming by 60% before the multiplicative damage multiplication factors in from things like Challenging Shout. So this is probably one of the strongest flat damage reductions in the game. So I moved it over to the necklace to get the most value out of it, because we are, again, always wielding a two-handed weapon. We're always going to get that 51% damage reduction. That has drastically increased my toughness. I'm now well over 3 million toughness when in combat. That's helped a ton. Then we gained anger management. That wasn't something I had before. Anger management, Heavenly Strength was on the chest. It's moved to the necklace, and now we can put anger management onto the chest piece. So while above 50 primary resource, which we are always above 50 primary resource, we're going to deal additional damage, but more importantly, we will always have berserking. We get it permanently. We lose 3 primary resource regeneration, but that's no big deal because we're gaining 11.5. So really it's just 3 minus 11.5. We're still gaining a positive, so we're not losing any resource regeneration here. It's just reducing the resource generation that we do get. But the upside is we get berserking 100% of the time. That is important because we did get our 5th board, and we do have the Blood Rage node now, which increases our damage by 60% while berserking. So having berserking 100% of the time means that we get the 60% multiplier 100% of the time. We are working our way to get Wrath, and Wrath is going to give us 3 Fury generation every time we critically strike, which is going to become even more important when you see the other change that I've made on my gear. But this is also a twofold benefit, that it's going to increase our critical strike damage by a additive, but then when it's legendary, it's going to increase our critical strike damage by a multiplicative amount. That's all going to come into play as I get these leveled up. Additionally, we also got the Might to level 50, and then got it legendary, which gives us an 11.7% multiplicative to healthy and injured enemies. So when they're above 70% and when they're below 30%, we get an extra multiplicative damage modifier. We're going to work on that for each one of these. You'll see that most of them are almost there. So this one is 41, this one is 32, this one is 31 and 31. And all of these are going to just give us more damage. So more damage to elites, more damage to vulnerable, and more damage to vulnerable. So we'll have more of that once we get these all finished up. Then the big change that we've made was I got a Tam gem, or a Tam rune to put into my gear, and what that changed was, instead of casting an ultimate skill every 6 seconds, my non-channeled core skill, which is HOTA, which we are spamming 100% of the time, is now the trigger for the secondary. Well, since we can now trigger that full time at 25, we can actually put a Gar rune in for 25, and every single swing of HOTA will give us a critical strike chance, and it will be always active to the maximum. So that will be the 10%. Because we are spamming it constantly, we'll always be at 10% additional critical strike chance. I removed the Frost Nova. I actually tried it with Frost Nova first, and it was really good because it's every 10th HOTA, which is extremely quickly to get to, you would get a Frost Nova. But when I removed the Frost Nova, I was no longer able to consistently incapacitate enemies, and that again reduced the effectiveness of that affix, because that legendary affix, because we weren't really triggering it all that often. So since we're moving it now to being plus 10% critical strike, then we don't really take as much benefit of the legendary affix for incapacitated. So I just removed it entirely because it just wasn't as effective as having the extra 10%. Because when you look at the change that it does, it brings us up to just under 50% critical strike chance. Now, every time we critically strike, we get 190% multiplier. Well, that's a lot more than what the incapacitated damage was on the chance that we would actually incapacitate the enemy. So I rather have every second swing, I get 190% multiplier, than wait for the incapacitated on either a boss or on the 10th swing of an enemy to freeze the enemy, to then get less damage multiplier than my critical strike damage. And again, when we get might to legendary, this is going to get a multiplier on top of it, which is going to make our critical strike damage go crazy. So it all comes back to these changes that are actually important because they trickle into each other. So this one is going to put us at about 50%. When we finally get through the master working of all of our gear, so this one is only at 9, the critical strike chance is going to go up here, and I think I have critical strike chance here that needs to be increased. Critical strike, this should be critical strike chance. I'm not sure why this hasn't changed yet, but this should also be critical strike chance. That also needs to be masterwork. So both of these need to be masterworked, and the critical strike chance there will be lifted up from the masterworking. We'll probably try to also get the masterwork final craft to always hit the critical strike to push it as high as humanly possible. Get it probably up close to 65, maybe 70% critical strike chance. I think that's going to probably be where the sweet spot is. We also have it on the necklace here, so 7.7%. When we finally masterwork this, we can get that crafted over as well. I try to hit it with the masterworking there. And then, of course, as we get ancestral pieces, that uplifts the critical strike chance again. Again, aim for about 70%, maybe 75%. I'm not entirely sure where it's going to land with everything kind of clicked into place. But if we can get it up to that like 70, 75%, I think it'll feel really nice and smooth. That's a lot of critting that we should do. If we can get it close to 100, then obviously we'll take benefit of that. But with the extra 10%, it's going to help us get there quicker. The other things that we changed, we did unlock Torment 8. So I had talked about I was in Torment 6 before. I'm in Torment 8 now. These changes have had a massive effect on my survivability. Again, now I think we're at like 3.5 million toughness instead of 2.5 million toughness. So massive increases to toughness. And then I also unlocked the 7th seasonal journey kind of unlock. I had talked about going in and doing the Greater Lair boss because it should be easy. It was easy. So we're on the 7th one. I did go try Echoes of Lilith with the build. Got her to about 80% and realized my damage just isn't there right now. So I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon without a damage uplift. With that being said, we do have this waiting for us in our stash. So if we go over here, we look at this hammer. We do have an Ancestral Greater Affix Critical Strike hammer, which we are working to mastercraft because the hammer I have is already mastercraft to 25 quality, and it's clicked onto resource cost regeneration. I really just don't want to lose that extra 4% resource cost regeneration until this one over here is actually mastercraft. Now, when we get this mastercraft to 25, I will probably not hit the resource cost regen with the mastercraft. I will probably hit the critical strike again to start moving the critical strike chance up as far as possible, considering it is the thing that got hit with the GA. We'll just start increasing all of that. And this one also will come with more critical strike damage multiplier rather than on the other side is life. So we're going to lose 4,000 life to gain crit damage. But again, all of this is going to help boost. The other thing I need to fix is this has fire damage multiplier. I want that to be all damage multiplier. So I want to get that rolled correctly, but that costs a ton of money, lots of money that I don't have. So when we get enough money, this will be all damage, and then we'll mastercraft it, and then we'll mastercraft the critical strike chance to be where it hits. And then that will be our new hammer. That should give us a massive damage increase. I'm talking a monumentally massive amount of damage increase. And then we can go try the Echoes of Lilith fight again. But yeah, so a lot of things still in play, a lot of things still in work that we're kind of working through. Toughness is much higher now. Damage, when we get this hammer done, will be much higher. And then the other thing I was going to work towards for damage is moving anger management back to the boots, getting rid of ghost walkers when I get an ancestral relentless heart. So I want to get an ancestral relentless heart because it gives us 90% damage increase on Hammer of the Ancients and would be very good. However, without a really good ancestral version of this, like with a lot going for it, it's going to be hard to beat my current chest piece. because if you take a second and you actually look at my current chest piece, my current chest piece has 9,000 armor. And I don't know how I'm ever going to get a chest piece better than this because it has 9,000 armor, which is a lot. So finding a relentless heart that gives me anywhere close to 9,000 armor is going to be a feat in itself. Also for it being GA'd and ancestral, but that's going to be a grind for another day. But that's what we're going to work towards, because when we get this, we can give ourselves 90% increased damage and then move anger management back to the boots, get rid of ghost walkers. We don't really need the extra movement speed, or I mean, unhindered is really nice, but we don't really need the extra movement speed. But that will come when we get a relentless heart that is good enough to replace this chest piece. So that's the future plans and kind of where we're going, and kind of the changes that have helped get us to where we are currently in Torment 8. When we finish the hammer, I think we can get the Torment 10 fairly easily because we will be doing a ton more damage. We should be able to shoot up the Torment 10 with some ease. So that's where we're at. Have a good one.